Well, it's fantastic to have Lou Warnes with us today. Lou's going to be sharing something of her story. So, Lou, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm married. I've got 4 daughters, 9 grandchildren. I was a nurse all my working life, and then after 2 bouts of cancer, I had to give up nursing in 2011. And really, since then, I'm just as busy, really, with looking after my grandchildren.
So, nine grandchildren, did you say?
I have, yes, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So
Ranging
that
from,
will keep you busy.
yeah, well, two especially keep me busy. They live nearby, and I help with school runs and that sort of thing. And they sleep over, and yeah, they're 13 and 10, so they're just at that age, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. Whereabouts in the UK do you live, Lou?
I live in Norfolk.
Nice place to live?
It's a lovely place to live. We're a little bit on the outside of the real world, I think, because no one else ever comes to Norfolk.
No.
Because I think we dropped out a bit. East
Yeah.
Anglia, I should say. But no,
Yeah.
it's a lovely place. Very, very rural where I live.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
I've been a couple of times to Norfolk. It is a little bit tricky to get to. You are out on a limb a little bit, and I think there's no
Yes.
motorway that way.
Yeah.
You end up going on air roads and stuff, and it seems to take
Oh, I
forever
know.
to get to certain
Yeah, we've
places.
still got roads with grass growing up in the middle.
Yeah, but it is a beautiful place for sure. Yeah. Now, Lou, you
Yeah.
used to be part of a group that is interestingly called a group with no name, but he does go by various names, doesn't it? Were you born into this group?
I was born and raised in this group, yes. Yeah. Up until I went to school, we didn't really know there was any difference in the way we were being brought up. We weren't allowed, we didn't mix very well. So once I went to school, I then realised that everyone else had a television, everyone else had radio, and everyone else had something that I didn't have. We were brought up very restrictive. We couldn't actually listen to music because we didn't have radio or television. We were always encouraged to learn to play an instrument, especially the piano, because then you could play hymns and that sort of thing. But yes, once I was at school, then I began to feel much different to my peers, to other children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said this is a group that says it's a group with no name, but tell us some of the names that it is known by.
Well, years and years ago, it was called the Black Stocking Brigade because all the women would wear black stockings. Okay. Sometimes it's been called bunheads because all the women have to wear long hair and put it up in a bun. It's been called the Cooneyites because sometimes that one of the first founders was called Edward Cooney, but he left quite early on. It's been called, I call it the 2x2s because of the way the preachers go out 2x2 in same-sex partners. Within the group, they call it the truth and the way. It's as further away from the truth as you can imagine.
How interesting that a group that really it likes to be known as a group with no name, when you call yourself that, people have to make up names for you. So then you just reeled off there 4 or 5 different names that they're known by. Yeah. So you were brought up in this. What about brothers, sisters? Did you have brothers and sisters also grown up in the group?
Yes. I'm one of 5. I've got an older sister, then there's me, then our brother Charles, and then 2 younger sisters. I was the only one out of my siblings who actually professed, which is joining the group. They all felt there was something not right. So they never did ever go to any more meetings, but obviously they went when they were growing up because they would go to the meetings with mum and dad and we would go as a family. My older sister was very poorly, very ill in hospital when she was in her early teens. And the only reason why I as you say, as I would say, profess or join the group was because my sister was so ill and I saw Mum and Dad having to go up to London, visit her in hospital. I just needed to reach God. I needed to pray to him. And I felt the only way I could do that was by professing, making it known that I wanted him in my life. And so I went, the workers, the preachers, would hold gospel meetings in tent missions or in various places in school rooms and that sort of thing. And there was a tent mission at this time when I was 14. And I vowed that the first meeting I was in where they tested the meeting to see if anyone wanted to profess, I was found out. And Mum and Dad had been to visit Trish that day in hospital. They came back, and I said to Dad, "Are we going to the mission?" And I mean, poor man, he'd been drive all the way to London and back. Anyway, he said, "Yes, we'll go." So we went, and sure enough, the meeting was left open, and I stood up. I didn't really know what to say. And coming home, Dad didn't say anything, and I thought, what have I done? But I did feel that I'd done something that had given me something within. I felt a lightness inside me. When I got home, I didn't say anything to Mum, but when she found out, she was really, really cross because she knew what was going to be expected of me. And of course, I never ever thought about the consequences of that choice that I made. All I wanted was to know that I had God within my life. In this way, it's not preached that you are saved by grace. You are saved by works. It's legalistic. You have to know of salvation. You have got to profess through two workers. You have got to then be baptized. You have then got to get to every meeting, which is Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, every mission that is around your area or even further. And it's not until you reach your dying day and you're still in it that you're looked on as being saved. Right. So I had no idea about being saved by grace. No idea that Jesus had done the work for me, that he had done everything I needed. And it was for me just to go to him, repent, and to just let him into my life.
So, Lou, you mentioned that you made this profession, which is sort of like, is that like saying then I accept being part of this group, or I accept Jesus into my life? What is a profession in that group? What does it mean?
It's people stand up to say that they want to be part of, in a sense, be part of the group, and they want to follow, and they want to follow Jesus' example.
And you mentioned, Lou, that your mother wasn't too happy about the profession, which seems a bit strange because you think if she's part of the group, your parents are part of this group, wouldn't they be happy? Because I'm thinking, if my child was coming along to church with me and then stood up and professed, I want this, then that'd bring me joy. But your mum, not so much. Why was that?
I think we've got to go back to how Mum and Dad met. Mum was brought up in the 2x2s when her mum re-professed after the workers went to the village where they lived. And my grandma, Mum's mum, she was very zealous, but her husband, my grandfather, never did profess. And then Mum was brought up in it, but she could see a lot of red flags in it. She could see that the workers were worshipped and they were the ones you had to abide by. And so when she got to a certain age, she never went back to any more meetings. She went to different other churches, but she never felt comfortable in any of them. So she had a belief, she had a faith, but she never went anywhere. Well, then one of her aunts knew Dad, who Dad was brought up in the exclusive brethren. And he had recently, his fiancée had stopped their engagement, so he was on his own. And he was a television technician, and he used to go and mend Mum's aunt's television. Anyway, this aunt decided that Mum and Dad would go very well together. So she made it possible for them to meet, and they hit it off and got together. And when Mum introduced Dad to her mum, and then my grandma told him all about what she was in, he wasn't happy in the brethren, so he decided, well, this sounds the real way. This sounds brilliant. So he then started going to missions, and he professed. And then 6 months later, Mum professed. But I don't think she would have professed if she hadn't met Dad. I think she always had those reservations within her. And I think why they were in it, why Mum was in it for so long, when Dad wasn't 21 and he was then conscripted to Singapore to do his national service, but his parents were absolutely furious that Dad had left the brethren and gone to this different way. So when he was posted over to Singapore, they wouldn't allow him to marry Mum because he wasn't 21. As soon as he turned 21 over in Singapore, he wrote to Mum and said, come over. So she went onto a troop ship, 3 weeks at sea, and they got married 3 days after she landed in Singapore. And the friends and the workers there were so different. She said all they had was such great love, and they saw such a lovely. The workers were nothing like they were in England. You know, they said, please don't judge these people with their short hair and their dress. You know, they were just so lovely. And Mum said it was that kept her in. And obviously Mum had a true faith and belief, and she was such a Christ-like lady, such a gentle person. Dad was always well, he was brought up in the brethren. He was Sunday school teacher at 12. He was preaching, and he always had that sense about him. But he was amazing, really. And I think when I stood up and professed, I felt I had to always do the right thing because of him. I didn't want to cause him any hurt or anything.
Wow. So your mum and dad then were sort of quite different whilst in the group. Like you say, your dad was sort of maybe quite strict following it, where your mum was a little bit more lenient, perhaps, and understanding, hence her disappointment, I suppose, when you professed, because she knew what it meant for you.
Well, she felt I was so young at 14.
Yeah.
You know, because, and of course, once you profess, then you're expected to take part in all the meetings. You give your testimony, you speak, you pray. And I just wasn't ready for that. And you weren't allowed. We weren't to take the bread and wine every Sunday morning. We had the bread and wine, but you didn't take that until you were baptized, which I wasn't baptized until a year later.
So what goes on in these meetings, Lou? Where do they take place, and what form would they take when they gather together?
Well, the mantra of this way is meetings in the home and the ministry without a home. So they don't believe in having a public building like a church. So what happens is all the members who are married, they have meetings in their homes. So if you have a Sunday morning meeting, usually the man of the house is the elder who's over the meeting. And it follows a form that we have our own hymn book. They have their own hymn book, which is called Hymns Old and New. And a lot of the hymns in there are written by the workers. So it starts off with a hymn, and then everyone takes part in prayer, and then someone else chooses a hymn, and then everyone takes part in giving their testimony, reading something out of the Bible that spoke to them. And then you have the bread and wine, and then after that you have another hymn, and then that's the end. And then you go go away. Some meetings, everyone get up and go out. Some meetings, you might have a cup of tea afterwards. But it's all very, very legalistic, and and some people take that opportunity, in my case, that if they have something to say to someone, they will use that opportunity in testimonies to kind of throw a few darts,
Yeah. So would this group consider itself the only true church? They believe themselves to be the only true Christians?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they would never meet with anyone else, any other
Absolutely.
Christians?
Everyone else is false.
And
No.
And how is it governed
No.
then, Lou? How is there like a leadership base somewhere?
There's no base. It's a very you get the overseers, who are like, they oversee the lower workers. So you've got a few tiers in the workers. You've got the junior workers who join. So you've got the sister workers and the brother workers, and they don't have any formal training or anything. They offer for the work at whatever age, maybe early teens, 20s, and then when they're accepted, they then have to sell all they've got. They give the money to the workers, the overseers, and then they go out with an older companion. So you've got a younger worker, an older companion. So the older companion is sort of the head, the higher worker. And then you've got overseers who are over, like we've got an overseer over UK, and then there's an overseer over Ireland and Scotland. And then worldwide, in New Zealand, in Americas, in all the different states and places, they have overseers who are over them. But there's not a regional office anywhere in the world, because they're not even classed as a charity or anything like that. So it's very hard, if anyone wants to get hold of them, it's very hard to know who to get hold of, because they're very,
That's
very
what I was
secretive.
thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, who appoints the overseers? Are they just appointed within?
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, as they get older, they obviously, I presume, they have workers' meetings, and then they obviously then appoint these overseers who are over all the other workers. And the thing is, the younger workers, they are beholden to the older workers, and the members, the friends, as they're called, they're not meant to question anything that the workers say.
That's a little bit scary.
What the workers say is law. And if you question them, or you say you don't agree with them, that can have some I mean, at some point, when people haven't agreed and they've been very, very vocal in what they don't agree with, they could be excommunicated. They could have meetings taken out of their homes. And to have a meeting in your home is supposed to be a great privilege. But if you're excommunicated, if you're shunned, if you're told no more meetings, you can't come anymore, then if people are brought up in that way and their whole family are in it, then some people can actually find themselves out in a world that they don't really know, no friends, and completely cut off from their families, because the families sometimes won't want to be with them either.
Would you say, Lou, from your experiences and from all that you know, you would classify this group as a cult?
Oh, absolutely. I do. I mean, the more I hear about it, I mean, more and more is coming out now. It's definitely a cult, because they're telling you what you should do and how you should be, down to women have to dress very conservatively. No makeup, no jewelry, long hair, very modest clothing. The name, but I mean, some would never ever go to a meeting without having a suit on and a tie on, and they dress up, and it's all very much about the outward appearance, very much. And I married into a family that were much more strict than I was brought up in, and that was a real eye opener to me. And it was all about outward appearance, being seen to get to the meetings, being seen to get to the missions, being seen to be dressing right, looking the right thing, and nothing about how you were clothed within.
So it was an outward show, really. You need to be looking the part, acting the part, but you maybe don't have a relationship with Christ because that's not really what it's about.
No. I mean, I struggled. I mean, I was in it for 44 years. And during that time, I always had this little niggle that something wasn't right. I always felt things weren't right. But when you get married, you marry within it. You marry a professing boy, and it's so difficult. And then when children come along and they go to the meetings, and everyone wants them to profess, and 2 of my children professed, but only one still goes now. But it's it's very, very difficult because the more unsettled I felt, and the more I felt things don't feel right, home life was such that I couldn't express that. I couldn't, and I will say the tensions within the family that I married into was such that I felt I was completely out of sync with them because I just could not be as zealous as they were. I was going to meetings and missions, and I found taking part in the meetings so difficult. And I got to the point where just to have to pray, I was thinking, what can I pray? Because you're kind of in this, what I call a professing box. You're in this little professing box, and you've got like a little letterbox that you look out onto. And all you know is what the workers are teaching. And they don't know much, some of them. And it was only when, I've gone through cancer twice, and I had mouth cancer in 2012. I had a big operation. And obviously, I didn't go to the meetings for a long while, months and months, because for one thing, I didn't have any teeth in, and it affected my speech. And even now, my speech isn't as good as it could be. And I started looking up things. I started looking on the internet, which is a no-no. The workers will say, don't look on the internet because what you'll read is all untrue. So I started looking on the internet, and it was then that I realised, as they say, this way started on the shores of Galilee. This started back in Jesus' time. But then I realised it was started by a man called William Irvine in 1897. And then I heard all about how it started then, and I thought, this isn't right, And gradually I got to the point where I thought, I'm being a hypocrite. I'm going to meetings. People think I'm with this group, and I don't want to be with this group anymore. And I wanted a much closer relationship with God. I mean, I had faith, I had belief, but I just felt there was something not right. I found it so hard to read the Bible, So 2014, I went down to the seashore, our local seaside, and I just sat there in the day after my birthday in November, and I just prayed, Lord, show me Tell me, what should I do? Give me the courage to walk away, please, if that is the right way for me to go. So I went back home and I ended up telling my husband, who acted as I thought he would. I then told my dad, and that was one thing. It was the hardest thing to do because I knew I was going to hurt him because he was still very much in it. By this time, my dear mum had passed away. Anyway, I felt such a freedom having said, right, I'm not going to go anymore. And then I had this crashing anxiety because I thought, no, they're going to want to know why. You know? And I didn't feel I'd got words to say why I didn't want to be there anymore. But I just knew I had to leave. And that was 2014. And so when I wasn't going to the missions meetings, what have you, I used to go visit a dear friend in a nursing home every Sunday morning. And then when she passed away, I was praying that I needed somewhere else to have fellowship. So I kept looking on the internet. I kept looking at the different places around. He showed me a little chapel in a nearby village, a little country chapel, long lane. And I went there, got in touch with the pastor there, and I've been going there since 2016. And I walked in thinking I was going to be struck down because I was going into a false church. And I was going to be listening to a lot of false teaching. Whereas I walked in and I just felt I'm at home. I've come home. The warmth and the love and the non-judgmental, there was no judgment, no criticism. I walked in there and absolutely, I've been going there ever since. Absolutely a lovely place. And I believe that's where God wanted me to go. And obviously, since looking up everything, listening to online sermons and listening to things, I then realised that, yes, we're saved by grace. It's not what we do, it's what Jesus has done. And through that, life has changed for me, but my husband still goes. And it's very, very difficult to be in a divided home.
It's interesting, Lou, what you're saying there, because I think your experience, I've heard a few times before from other people who've come out of cultic type groups, where a break away from the group is what really did it for them. Because when you're in the bubble,
Yes.
it's really hard for you to see things, hear things, even though you were unsettled within the group and you had concerns and were unsure about things. It was that time out in hospital and after that period where you're looking at the internet, you're seeing things, where it really seems to have cemented in your mind, this isn't right, and I need to get out. And sometimes it is, I think, that little break away from the group that can just cement things more fully. So it sounds like, Lou, what you're saying is you were a believer within the group, really, because you knew it was about Jesus, but coming out, you've experienced him more fully now.
Yes.
And what it really means.
Yes. What I've got now is so much more than what I had in going to the meetings and what have you. And it's, you can't compare it really, And there's so many people in the group who are such lovely people. I have still got relatives in the group. And I just want them to know what I know. But having said that, things are coming out about the group now since October 22 and March 23. There was a big scandal of one of the overseers who died in a hotel room. And from there, they found out that he was actually living a double life with sexually abusing children. And that has absolutely opened a huge can of worms. And now there is so much being looked into over the whole system in the world. The FBI are now involved, and there are allegations, there are so many perpetrators within the group who over and over again. And there's an implosion of this CSA within the group, and it's actually now almost tearing the group apart because there's so many that are leaving. There are those who don't want to believe what's happening. There are those who believe what's happening but are scared to leave the group. And there's some who have left the group. And I think because their belief and faith was in a way, a man-made way, workers, and the way the group was, they've left with nothing.
Yeah.
They have no faith, no belief. They've turned agnostic, they've turned atheist.
Yeah.
And to me, that's tragic because they've been robbed of what being saved by grace is all about.
I think to be in that group, Lou, like you say, and to your faith really to be in the workers and in the way itself, then for that to implode leaves you with nothing, because like you say, you never really had Jesus anyway. It was all based on a faulty foundation and false premises.
The thing is, the workers, they don't believe in the Trinity. So Jesus came down here as God's son, lived on earth, but he was just there to follow. You just follow his example.
Wow.
And in a sense, the workers take the place where Jesus should be. You know, you can't get to Jesus, you can't get to God unless you go through the workers.
Yeah, well, that's really problematic then, isn't it? And like you say, it sounds like from what you're saying, in a denial of the Trinity, who do they believe Jesus to be then? Do they believe he was just a man who was, like you say, an example to follow, but he was no more than a man?
Yeah, I mean, different workers seem to have different ideas. I mean, some of the workers know how the whole way started, so it's very difficult to know. And other workers will tell you that it started from the shores of Galilee. But as far as Jesus is concerned, I think they believe he was a man who came from God, but they don't believe that he is God. They don't believe in the Trinity, that he's part of the Trinity, and that they don't believe that, like, they never say much about the blood of Jesus. They don't seem to realize that shed blood is our salvation. He done everything on that cross for us. He was on that cross in our place. But you don't get that teaching, you know?
Right.
You just have to follow his example.
And then that leads, like you said, Lou, to no assurance of salvation, because it's dependent upon you, on your works. And maybe within that group, then you never know whether you've done enough.
No, you're trying the whole while. You're trying to be good. You're trying to do the best you can. And a lot of testimonies in meetings is, well, I must just try harder. I must just try to do better. And also, like, I was talking to someone one day and saying that this elderly person, I said, I'm sure she's scared of dying because she's in the way, but she's scared of dying. And he said, yeah, I think she is. And I said, it's sad because when you've believed what you've believed all your life, you should have the assurance that you're saved. And he says, well, that's a very a self-righteous attitude. That's very self-righteous to think that you're saved until the end, you know. And I think, well, no, you should be saved while you're here on earth, not just when you die.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how they think. I'm sure there are many people who go to the meetings who have a true faith and belief. I'm sure they do. But I think there is a great fear from the workers of leaving. And if you're sort of, especially elderly people who have been in it for all their lives, brought up in it, they don't know anything different. and a lot of elderly people, they might not have the internet, they might not be able to see what's going on, and no one is going to tell them, you know. But I did hear of an elderly sister worker who's been in the work, she's in her 80s. She has now come out of it because she says, I cannot be part of it any longer. And I just think that dear lady at 80 odd has been her life, and she's actually left it and come out of it. And she's been cared for by loved ones. So it can be done.
Now, for you, Lou, you've been out around about 10 years now, and obviously it was a massive thing to leave the group, to tell your father, to tell your husband, and your wider family, your children perhaps. And so how's that playing out for you now since you left? How does your husband react? He's still in, as you said, and you've got a daughter that's still in. How does those relationships work for you at the moment?
Not easy. I get on fine with my daughter who's still in. I think she has her doubts anyway. But she obviously she's married to someone who's it, you know, so she's just quietly sorting things out. My husband is still very much feels this is the right way, the only way. And so I can't be as open and as free as I'd like to be, because that can cause friction. I mean, I do have a blog which I write on a Christian website, and I've got some amazing, lovely friends who have come out from the way, who I am very close in contact. I've made some dear, dear friends at chapel where I go to, and they all help. And the chapel, our little family church there, is a very, very praying church. Everyone prays for everyone. And there's such a sense of everyone is there. Everyone at chapel knows my story. They know what I've come out of, and they know what's going on at the minute.
Yeah.
So I just feel I have got so much love from them. But it isn't easy.
No, I can imagine.
No.
But like you say, Lou, prayer is the key, really. You know, where we can't reach our loved ones, we need to commit them to God, and God can wake them up. God can draw them out, and that's the prayer for your husband and your daughter for sure.
Yes.
In terms of the group, then, do they, when a person leaves like yourself, do they then shun you, the wider group? Are they supposed to have nothing to do with you?
In certain parts of the country, especially abroad, I've heard some terrible things where they've been shunned completely by their families and by the friends that they probably met with at a meeting. They're just cut off completely. I wasn't actually shunned in any way. Some of the other friends who I used to know don't contact me anymore much. And I think what it is they don't know what to say. I think they're embarrassed and they're not sure how to face me sometimes. So, and I must admit, I have a very, very dear cousin and his wife. And when they knew, I mean, they are part of it. When they knew, they just sent me a message saying, Lou, we still love you, nothing changes. And I'm very close to them. But yes, you do get I mean, when I first done it, the worker, the head worker who was within over Norfolk, he wrote me a letter, and he was so shocked to get my letter because he thought I was very zealous. And he said the only reason why he thought I wasn't actually going to the meetings and missions is because of my illness and my operation and everything. But yeah, he tried to say he hoped I would get restored. They even went and had a mission in the village hall opposite where I live. After I sent them a letter saying I didn't want to go anymore, they then had a mission in the village hall opposite where I live, just to hope that I would go and get my faith restored. And I just wrote back and said, I have never ever lost my faith or belief in God.
You can see why they'd say something like that, though, Lou. When they think they're the only true church, to leave that group then is to leave God in their minds. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and once you're out of it, you're going to a lost eternity. That's it. There's only one place that you're going to go to. Whether everyone in the group believes that, whether every worker believes that, I really don't know, but that is the overriding sense that once you leave the group, you're going to lose out big time.
It's a strange thing, really, Lou, isn't it? Because they don't have an assurance of salvation themselves because they're not sure whether they've done enough, but they're pretty sure that you, who are trusting in the Lord Jesus and the finished work on the cross and his blood has blotted out your sin, they're pretty sure that you're not going to be saved, though. Amazing.
Yeah, no. So, it's sad.
It is. Louise, as we sort of draw things to a close, what would you say is the biggest sort of difference you've found since you left this group in terms of your relationship with God? How I think you've mentioned a few things already, but now you've come out of this group, you're trusting in the Lord Jesus. What's been the big difference for you?
I think it's knowing that it's not about, I haven't got to keep trying to be someone I'm not. It's about knowing that everything that's had to be done has been done, and that I just need to have that, just to pray and I just know that I am never alone. I feel assurance. And even when I do, yes, I do have doubts, I do fear, I do question, but I have somewhere to go to where I know that God will speak to me. He'll lead me to something I need to read. I know once I was having real problems and he put a verse in my head, and when I read it, I thought, wow, he really has prodded me there. He prods me to act and to act on what I've read. And I've had amazing visions, just little glimpses of what's ahead. I was once driving to get the boys from school, and as I was driving along, I had this overwhelming sense of such a power of love, of joy, of peace. And I thought to myself, if this is what heaven is like, I want to be there and never leave. And after that went, I wanted to hold on to that. But you know what brought that to mind? I thought, just previous to that, I've been thinking, well, I wonder what heaven's going to be like. Is it really going to be? Is it, I couldn't imagine what it was going to be like. And I even thought, is it going to be boring? Which is a terrible thing to think. What are we going to be doing up there? And then I had this vision of there's going to be so much joy and peace and love and such a warmth, and you never ever want to leave it. And that was nearly a year ago I had that vision, and I hold on to that. Every time I feel a little bit down, I think, no, remember, that little bit of veil was lifted for me to see that.
That's amazing, and that's amazing grace, isn't it? And we know that we are assured of our future because of Christ.
Yeah, and there's just one other thing that I thought of the other day. I believe God was planting little seeds in my heart at an early age, and I can remember this one thing. When I was about 7 or 8, I was waiting to cross the road with Mum, and on her hand. And I remember looking up at the sky, and it was a beautiful blue sky with white billows of clouds. And I just thought, there's someone figure up there. There's someone really big up there who's doing all this. And I often think back to that, and I think, yeah, that was a little seed being planted in my heart.
Lou, it's been fantastic talking to you, and it's great to hear your story, that you're out of this group and in Christ and assured of your salvation. We do pray for your husband, for your daughter, for your friends that are still in there. They need to come out and come to Christ and realize that it's just about him. But we have a big God who can do that, and that's our hope. Lou, if anybody listens to this and would like to get in touch with you, is that okay just to put your information on the bottom of this audio?
Yes, certainly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You've got my email, haven't you?
I have, yes. So I will add it, and then if anybody sort of just wants to hear more of your story, or maybe somebody might come across this who's in this group, looking on the internet, they're not supposed to, but people do. It'd be great if they could get in touch with you and find some support and some help.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely to talk to you, Lou. Every blessing.
Yeah. And thank you ever so much for wanting to listen to it.
No, it's okay. People need to hear your story, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in it. So thank you so much.